Hey, it's Simon from Aspire Competitions. With the weather getting better, a few of you might be thinking about buying your first bike, maybe your second bike or even your third. And as you might expect, we buy a ton of bikes at Aspire. So we thought we'd give you a little bit of a buyer's guide and a little bit of a helping hand into when you're looking at that next purchase. Obviously, we buy bikes from all different networks, through dealers, through private sales. Obviously at dealers, you've got a bit more protection with warranty, but if you're buying and thinking about buying privately, it's a little bit more daunting. So we thought we'd just give you a few pointers and a few things that we do that helps avoid buying a lemon. Now in this situation, we're thinking about buying this Honda CBR Fireblade. Now, how do we find bikes? I use a few different platforms. Obviously Facebook Marketplace is a really good way of finding a used bike. eBay is another good way. I've used Gumtree a few times, perhaps not so successful there, but also I found forums is a really good way. So with the Honda Fireblade, there's a Honda Fireblade forum, which is well worthwhile getting on. The great thing about a forum is you can put a post up saying that you're looking at buying a particular bike, and you might actually convince one of the members on there that might be thinking about selling a bike, so you're getting in there before anyone else has thought about buying that bike. It's just a really good way of beating other people. Once you've found a bike that you're interested in, what I would tend to do is obviously ask a few questions online. So I might be asking them how long they've owned the bike for, any known issues with the bike, ask them is it HPI clear. I might be asking and looking to check on the MOT, any known faults with the bike, has it got two keys with it, this sort of thing. Before you've even gone to look at the bike though, there's an awful lot that you can do to kind of protect yourself. And one of the first things I do is once I've found the bike, I've perhaps had a phone call with the buyer, but before I've got in the car or the van to go and see it, I'm heading off to my computer to do a few free checks that you can do just to check if you're buying the right bike. So let's head on and have a look. Okay, so as said, there's a few things that you can do before you've gone and jumped in a van, taken an afternoon off to go and look at this bike that you want to go and see, just to do some checking. One of the first things that I like to do, it's totally free, anyone can use it, and that's a Dvla Mot Checker. Totally free. All you need to do is just Google Dvla Mot Check. This page will pop up, and then you can put in the registration. So here's our Honda CBR Fireblade. Right away we know it's MOT'd, so it's got a full year's MOT on it. But the really important thing there is we can see its history, and that's what you want. You're just trying to kind of snoop on it a little bit and see what it's done in the past. So this bike, it's got a noisy exhaust, so we know it has got a aftermarket pipe on it. It failed previously with a missing rear reflector, as so many do. So instantly we can then see the mileage, and that's what I'm looking for, is to see any mileage discrepancies of this bike. So you can look all the way through here. I would recommend doing a HPI check. It costs about £5, and what you're looking for here is to make sure the bike has never been written off. I've seen it happen before. People have bought bikes. I've even HPI checked someone's bike that I've been buying that had it for 2 years and didn't even know that it had a previous damage record on the report, which massively devalues the bike. So there's lots of things that you can use. You can Google. I find that the instant car check one is probably the cheaper option. You can use an official HPI one, it's a bit more money. But if you're going to jump in a car or van, drive 2 hours to go and look at a bike for sort of £6, you can get a lot of information. So here's our Honda Fireblade. A basic check, £2.95, will give you back any news on whether it's been stolen, any write-off claims. So if you just want to spend as much as a cup of coffee, that will give you what you need to know. The gold check will do a bit more like MOT history, previous owners, evaluation. Personally, you already know a lot of this from doing your Dvla check. If it's a newer bike, a bike that's likely to be financed, what I sometimes do is for £4.99, just get an outstanding finance check, particularly if it's a slightly newer bike that may be something that somebody would finance through a dealer. But once you've done all those checks like we've done, we can see that it's not written off. We can see that all the mileage stacks up. It's got an MOT. We know that there's not any current defects. So, for example, if a bike passed but it had a recommendation that a tyre was low or it had a wheel bearing that was on its way out, these are things that you can check for when you go and view your bike. So once you've got all that done, time to go and view. So that's what we're going to do next. We'll see you in a minute. So good news, you've done a few checks online and you found everything's looking like it's checking out. And at this point, you're going to have to start considering that you may need to go and have a look at this bike. So think about how you're going to go and do that. Are you going to go with a friend and take your bike gear to ride it back? Obviously considering factors like the weather. Do you want to get on a brand new bike that you've never ridden before in the wet? I've done it myself and it's quite scary when you suddenly realise you've got an hour and a half riding back in the rain. So personally, I think, you know, renting a van or getting a friend who's got a van is a really good way of going to view a bike. It also tells the seller that when you arrive that you really mean business. You turned up in a van. Okay, so you've arrived at your bike. Obviously here we are with our gorgeous CBR Fireblade. I always find that when I arrive at the bike, obviously there's this huge excitement to want to take the bike home. You've come a long way, you're in your van, you've got a friend with you, you've got all your gear, you've got your money burning a hole in your pocket, and it's at this point you've got to just remain calm and just really go through this bike and always be prepared to go home empty-handed. You don't buy something just for that pressure that you feel like wanting to buy a bike. So we're here with our bike. I tend to work really methodically through the bike. So what I would be doing here on this occasion, looking at the front end, so particularly the fairings. Are the fairings OEM original? Have they been replaced at any point? This has a huge impact on the cost, particularly with a Honda. There's a lot of aftermarket fairings out there, and that's great. Some of the aftermarket fairings available look really good, but they're probably Chinese replicas. And again, they'll just devalue the bike when you come to sell it. And that's the key thing you want to be thinking about here, is you want to be thinking about that resale value. Sounds bad, you might want to keep the bike for a year, 2 years, but most people don't keep bikes that long. So you want to be thinking, and Fireblades have got really good resale value, but the minute you take off originality, things like fairings, you know, you've just slightly devalued that bike. So think about that. Obviously, this one's been fitted with an aftermarket front fender, carbon fiber one, probably because the previous owner at some point left a disc lock on. I've done it myself, but really good quality front mudguard this. One thing that I have got wrong in the past, check your front forks, make sure they look straight, make sure they're not leaking. Really big cost, quite labour intensive if this is something that is leaking oil. Obviously to change those seals, it's not a deal breaker, but it's something you need to consider. So I always check the front forks, push the front end of the bike down a couple of times and just make sure you're not getting a ton of oil down on the stanchions. Check the wheel condition, make sure wheels aren't dented. Again, I bought a bike before, got it home, realised one of the rims is dented. Not a complete deal breaker, companies can repair them, but you just need all this information. Have a look at your pads, have they been replaced? This one has, we've got brand new pads in there. Tyre condition, full set of tyres on one of these bikes, you know, you're going to be looking at a few £100s, so make sure you're looking at tyre condition. You're going to want to start the bike, so have a feel, make sure this bike hasn't been started previously to you turning up. A really good way of hiding bad engine noises is to get a bike nice and warm, so check it's cold. And then just look all through it, don't be afraid, just take your time. Check the mirrors. Have a good look down here and make sure that the steering stops are still in place. If a bike's been dropped really badly and had a really nasty accident, there's every chance that those steering stops have been broken off, the lugs on there. So check those first and foremost. And then just have a good general look over the bike. I always check the oil, make sure there's no nasties in there. You know, if the head gasket's gone, you're going to know fairly quickly. So just have a quick check at the oil level. Exhaust condition, have a good look at the rear swing arm, make sure there's no dents. Obviously, quite common if one of these Fireblades has had a knock that these rear swing arms get dented. And then have a look at things like the pillion pegs. These are obviously quite expensive, really difficult to put back on as well if you've ever changed them on a Fireblade. So just check. If they're not on the bike, visually they look better removed. Just see if the seller has got them at, you know, so that you can take them on with them. Same with things like the seats. This seat's got a nice little rear pillion cover. Does the original seat come with it? And the same with the exhaust. You know, anything that person might have stashed away, if there's an original exhaust for the bike as well. So okay, so move the bike around. On this side of the bike, it's a good way of just checking the condition of the chain and the sprockets. Front sprocket's generally hidden, but you can have a good look at the rear sprocket, make sure the teeth are in good order, and the chain looks like it's in fairly good condition. This one's had a fairly recent set put on it, so nothing to worry about there. My next plan would be to get the bike started up. So obviously we've checked that it's cold, so we know it's not fired up at all. Get the engine running, just listen out for any bad noises. This should sound absolutely sweet as a sewing machine, as you'd expect with a Honda bike. Check things like the mileage. This has got a LCD screen, so just check the mileage is as stated by the seller, and as you've already done the checks, you know what you've been looking for as well anyway. Don't be afraid to press everything on the bike. Check things like your clutch feel, your brake feel, check all the lights work, indicators work, check all the kill switches work. A common thing is a kill switch goes on these, so just make sure everything works. So you've gone through the bike, you've heard it, it's running well, everything seems to work on the bike. The next thing is to check things like, does it have 2 keys? Some bikes have a red key, so just make sure that the keys come with it. Does it have a pack? Go through the service history, particularly with the Fireblade, make sure it's had a fairly recent or within the mileage criteria valve check. These again are massive costs, so you just want to do your research and to make sure that you're not going to have a huge bill when you get this bike home. So check service history. An older bike like this is a 2009 model, so the seller may not have kept up with the history on the servicing and may have decided to do a bit of work themselves, but just keep an eye on where did that last finish. A few years ago, maybe not too much to worry about, but again, it's all things that help you on that buying process. Make sure the V5 is in their name. That's really important. You're at the address, so check that. The next thing I do, which is something I didn't used to do, and it's something a dealer showed me, is just make sure that things like frame number and engine numbers are matching that V5. You know, so many engines might get swapped out, so just double check. It's all the sorts of things that you need to be doing to protect yourself. Frame number on the Fireblade is just down here, just under the front yokes here. So just check little things like that just to safeguard yourself. And then at that point, hopefully you're ready to do a deal. But before that happens, obviously you're not able to ride these bikes, and it's the big thing that is a really tricky one. A lot of sellers might say, well, cash in my hand and, you know, off you go. Can leave a bit of an awkward taste if anything did go wrong. So I choose to do something different. I just ask the seller, can you just ride up the road for me? Watch it go into all the gears, see it pulling away and stopping. And I think that, in my opinion, is the safest way. They're insured, and you can really get an idea then. If they're not prepared to do that, perhaps it's raining and they don't want to get it outside. Hopefully, you know, you've got a bike stand, you can pop the back wheel up and just watch it click through the gears nicely. And I think at that point, you know, you get a tend to get a good feel for it. So that's how I cover the non-riding thing. If you're absolutely sure you want to go and ride the bike, then that's something you'll have to arrange with, with the seller and have an agreement between you. But that's how I get around it. And then really at that point, it's over to you to get a deal done. Don't be afraid to go in with a bit of a low ball if you think that there's some negotiation on the price. Don't be afraid to walk away and just have a quick think in your head, or maybe you want to ring someone that might be able to give you some advice on a price to go in at. So take your time. Once you've offered a price, you can't go backwards, but you can always go back up. I've made that mistake before. I've offered on a bike and then they've accepted it. And I've always thought, oh, why didn't I just go a bit lower? Wasn't a deal breaker, but it's something that I remembered for next time. Obviously, going in really, really silly cheap, just upsets the seller. So just think about that in mind, and over to you to get the deal done. So sun's shining, we're going to get off inside. If you've got sort of comments, maybe you've got like your own experiences where things have gone wrong, feel free to pop them in the comments. We'd love to see some of your own experiences on buying bikes. Good luck, ride safe, and we'll see you out there.